I don't mean to be depressing or anything like that, but every time my work week ends, I am struck by just how pointless life really is, because I get home and, at least with American culture, there's this idea that you have to make something of yourself and like be successful in business or something, and I guess get rich or famous or something. You have to like move towards that, at least when you're young, or you need to go to college or something. And I don't really have any ambition to do anything besides this honestly kind of a dead-end job that I'm in, because I don't really see the point in doing anything. And that may just be because the way that I think about life is different from how other people think, and maybe if I was more normal and my desires were more normal, then I would want to do the things that normal people do. But since I don't even know if I want to get married when I get older, and I don't know if I want to have children, it kind of leaves my options open in terms of what I can be doing. Like what like there, it kind of removes the point from having to find some kind of career where I make enough money to support a family. And especially when I look at just people around me, I've never met anybody where I was like, I would marry that person. Like, most marriages here in the U.S., I think it's like 70 no, it's not. Well, it's some absurdly high amount of marriages end in divorce, and people are unhappy because they weren't very careful when they were choosing who they were going to be with, and people are just immature and they're selfish, so they're not very nice to each other. And with friendships, I haven't really had a real friendship in, I guess, like 2 years or maybe over 2 years, and I've kind of just been on my own, doing my own thing. And while it sucks to imagine possibly growing up and being much older and not having close friends, apparently that's not really something that happens much of the time anyway. Or maybe that was just a millennial thing, I'm not sure. Because, actually when I think about it, my grandparents, they've all had their friends that they kept in touch with and spend time with, but and even my dad, I suppose he's got people. It's just that it's a rare thing for them to spend time together or anything. I guess there must be a difference between when you're in your 30s and you're still raising your children, and when you're in your 40s and your children are all grown up. I think that we tend to enter phases in life and then we think that it's going to be the same way forever. But then, a decade later, something changes and life is very different. So maybe the way that life is right now for me is not actually indicative of how it will be in the future. But right now, if I were to forecast the weather based on current conditions, it's not a very good look, at least on the outside. On the inside, spiritually I feel very, very well most of the time, but I am continually tormented by this thought that I need to be doing something, or that I need to be accomplishing something, and that I don't want to grow up and basically be what people will call a loser. But on the other hand, there's not really anything I want from this life. And when I really think about it, you know, the simple loser life, so to speak, might be for me. It might be something that would suit me very well. And, I don't mind I feel that I never really fit in anywhere. But I prefer being around simple, kind of, I guess, deadbeat, loser type people than I do more traditionally, like what you would consider to be successful people with lots of money and their big house and their children and stuff. I prefer being around just more simple, down to earth, paycheck to paycheck people, I guess. Of course, I'm also concerned about degenerating economic conditions and how the price of everything is going up, and we're still not making very much money. But there's really not a lot I can do about that. And I don't want to have to struggle to work some job that I would hate. And what I would hate and what another person would hate are two very different things. For example, the idea of working any job that requires me to answer a phone and speak to someone, or to maybe participate in video calls or work on the computer at all as my job, sound nightmarish, especially when I get home on the weekends or on a day like today where I can't leave to go to work because I'm snowed in. I notice just how tired being on the computer makes me, and I don't know why it is that way exactly. It's something to do with the light in my eyes. If I take breaks every few hours and just go and do something else, it's not really too bothersome. But on Monday, I'm usually quite tired still when I go to work because it was so incredibly draining and exhausting on my body to work on the computer. It is literally more exhausting. Well, not to work on the computer, just to be on the computer. It was literally more exhausting every time than at the end of a Friday when I've worked a full work week. Just a couple days on the computer, it's more tiring than mild manual labor. I don't want to obviously work in some back-breaking job, but I do not want to work on a computer because it makes me tired in this way that it's a tiredness that is unlike any other kind of tiredness that I know. Like, it's not, if you work hard and you're moving your muscles all day long, that is one kind of tired. But the kind of tired that I get from being on the computer for many hours, which is what would happen if I worked some kind of computer job. It is awful and I hate it so much. It feels so bad. And there was about a month, maybe 2 months, where I was working a job where I was on the computer most of the time. And I was also waking up earlier than I wanted to because the sunlight would come into the room that I was sleeping in, and for some reason I just hadn't fixed that problem. But I was not getting enough sleep, and it drove me crazy. And I just had a really, really rough time. I had to quit that job because it just made me so tired, and I was exhausted, and I just felt horrible. And when you feel bad in your body, sensationally. When you're in pain or you're exhausted, it's going to affect your mood. And that's what happened. It was really bad. So, but the thing is I get home after a work week and there's really nothing that I can think of doing. I don't really believe that much I can do is very productive, and I don't know, I guess, what to work on or what to do. And it's not necessarily that it's not that I have low self-esteem when I say this, but I don't believe that I am competent enough to do a lot of the things that I would like to do. And that's only because I don't believe that people in general are very competent. And so I think that when we do things, when people write books and they try to influence the world, I think that a lot of the time they actually end up doing a lot of damage and more harm than good because they don't actually know what they're doing. And that view has developed over a long period of time, because whenever I take any subject and I learn enough about it, I always discover that the mainstream views, it's just a pattern that I've noticed, that the mainstream views are always wrong on whatever it is. And the most recent thing that led, kind of supports that is my studies about addiction. And I've been listening. I read this book called The Freedom Model for Addictions, and the authors have a podcast called the Addiction Solution Podcast, and basically their whole thing is that there is no pharmacological, or I don't know if they say physiological, but every time I'm referring to it, I do. There's no like drugs, alcohol, whatever, these substances, these activities that people get addicted to, the substance or the activity, they don't cause people to actually become helplessly addicted. And they believe that addiction is always a choice. Now, these people have worked in addiction treatment basically their whole lives, for like they've either, well, actually, honestly, I could say like 3 decades, but it really has been like pretty much their whole lives, and they've been in that culture, especially the Alcoholics Anonymous culture, for a long time. So just as an example, they spent a long time when they were younger trying to help people the way that Alcoholics Anonymous helps people. But now they're in their 50s, I believe, and the way that they help people is pretty much, I want to say antithetical, but I'm not sure that's an appropriate word. It's pretty much the opposite of what they were doing before. And what they've learned is that the way that Alcoholics Anonymous and all these like these Narcotics Anonymous, and essentially the way that people view addiction is incorrect. So the way that they try to treat it is wrong. And so all these programs and all these groups and these societies and these support communities, they keep destructive and unhelpful mythology alive, and they convince people of things that aren't true about addiction. So all these people try to be helpful, and it actually doesn't help. It's actually worse. It makes things actively worse when you tell someone that they are helplessly addicted and they aren't. So that's just an example of maybe you have some kind of idea of helping someone in a certain way. But if you went down the standard path you're going to actually be causing more damage than you are going to be helping anybody. And I believe that this is something that, honestly, the devil and the dark powers do. I think that a lot of things in this world are corrupted. And if you were to get into, I'm convinced, for example, that if I were to get into studying medicine, that I would discover a lot of things about medicine and the human body and what heals a person or helps a person recover that would be opposite of what everybody usually thinks. And that's not to say that that the medical world is wrong about everything. There's obviously things that are just obviously helpful, these treatments that people do, but I think that there's probably, I'm not sure how to explain it, but there's probably some approach that you could take that would be radically different when it comes to keeping people healthy, and it would work much better and be far less expensive. I think that healthy eating is extremely underestimated. I don't think that we talk about healthy eating enough. People seem to know how to treat things in very expensive ways, but there's not enough preventative measures taken. People don't seem to realize how destructive like sugar and alcohol and just regular foods are to the body over time. And there's all these different practices that we do that are probably very destructive. We don't get enough, and here at least in America, we don't get enough exercise. We have this huge obesity problem. But for some reason, doctors are seen as geniuses and they're revered. The thing is doctors should tell people more to just, watch what they eat. There shouldn't be an obesity problem in the United States right now, basically. We've got all this, it's like people are unaware of the fact that they're killing themselves, and it's not just obesity, but when cigarettes were first made, people thought it was healthy. The thing is people never really know what's the mainstream opinion of what people believe is just never really accurate. And I guess I've kind of gotten off subject, but the point that I was making is I don't want to try to help people in some way and end up harming people. So any sort of selfless activity that I could think of, I think I have to be very careful, and I don't want to just jump into something and be less of a help and more of a harm. I'd rather just do nothing than try to do something and do something wrong and mess things up and make things worse. So I'm left with basically keeping to myself and living my own life, but I'm not even entirely sure what I want, but I'm pretty sure it's not what everybody else has. When I look at other people's lives, there's nobody around me that I really see as a model for what I would want my life to look like. I just look at people's lives and I look at the relationships they have, and I just don't want it the way that they have it. So, yeah, I mean, and you think about how everything in this world will pass away eventually, and we aren't going to have anything in this world to take with us. And I mean, what can I say? My favorite book of the Bible is Ecclesiastes. it's kind of funny. It's such a kind of a depressing book, but it's all about how life is pointless. And the thing is, it's kind of right. There's really not a lot of point to things. Um, I guess I talk about a lot of people, especially, I guess it's kind of the culture everywhere. Everybody that they want to get married and have kids, that's the goal of life, but that's not really the goal of life. It's just a thing that people do, and they've convinced themselves that everybody has to do it. But I think it was Paul that said that it's neither good to be married or unmarried. It's just a thing that you can do in your life, and maybe it's God's will for your life or not. And yeah, I guess I'm just kind of stuck, not really doing much of anything. And I don't really believe in the idea of doing something productive. I think it's an illusion most of the time. I don't know, maybe I'm just being silly, but I don't really know what to do with myself. And I don't think I'm competent enough in whatever, whatever thing that could come to mind first in trying to help people in some way. I don't think I'm competent enough to do that. So I think I should just keep to myself, at least for now.